Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. This is Francois, your host, and I'm here with Roel. Hey Roel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very good, very good. And today we're going to talk about Mist, and more specifically talk about the content they presented at Mobility Field Day 4, and just give our thoughts on the new things that they talked about.
Yeah, they did talk a lot about everything that they've been working on for the past year since they were last at Mobility Field Day.
Yeah, so they appear to be on every time now. They like to come to Mobility Field Day, and they like to always share like their path, their new customers. They like to share where they are in their AI journey and in their journey to the self-driving network, as they call it. And it's always interesting to know what they're working on. It's been very exciting for them. Earlier this year, they got acquired by Juniper. So we also wanted to know, what was going on since the acquisition. And so it's always interesting to have them on. They keep growing every year. They grow. This year they told us that they're working on deploying Mist for 3 of the Fortune 10 companies in the US.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty big. Yeah.
So it's quite impressive.
Yeah, that says a lot about Mist and how far they've come from being a startup to now being like a really big player in the wireless space, especially being acquired by Juniper, because now they have this big company behind them to help them expand and actually get more products out there faster.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about, one of the new things they did. I think that's related to the Juniper acquisition. They didn't get to talk much about, what they're planning on the future or what they're planning on doing with Juniper. I think it was too early. I think the acquisition happened a couple of months ago, so I think it's too early for them to just come on Mobility Field and share all of that. But hopefully, if they come back next year, hopefully they can share an update on that and how they want to integrate the two platforms. I don't really know what they want to do, but they could do something cool. They could leverage their AI and system for.
Are you talking about the integration with the switches?
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing they did, right? So they added switch support in the platform, in the cloud platform. So you can now see switches status, but it's read only for now. Yeah,
so they're just ingesting that data and being able to give you information that they usually basically leveraging the technology they have with AI and machine learning, but applying that to the wired side of things. And this is what I had imagined seeing for a while, because they were partnering with Juniper for quite a bit. And then now with the acquisition, I think that will only escalate further. And for sure, we'll see something next year, maybe even sooner, with the switch integration. And as far as I remember, in the video recording, they had mentioned for sure Juniper support, but also being able to support other switches as well.
Yes, I believe it's right. And they now have like a switch health view, so you can go into a switch and then look at the health of the switch. And I believe it's just like the beginning of it. For now, it's just like read only. But in the future, we could imagine something where the AI would just detect anomalies and maybe act upon it reconfigure some ports and or do some some configuration. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. I think that'll be a big growth for them, and being able to detect some of these issues that are not wireless, being able to say it's on the wired side of things, this will only give them more granular information, being able to see things at a deeper level on the wired side. So yeah, looking forward to that next year or even before next year. I think it'll come out sooner. It seems like they're really trying to work on this and give this advantage to Juniper customers sooner.
Something else they're working on is Wi-Fi 6, right? And Mist was actually awesome because when we arrived, they had a Wi-Fi 6 access point running. With a couple of clients generating traffic with iPerf, and they were streaming the spectrum view on the projector. So we could see the OFDMA activity on the big screen as we arrived. So that was a cool welcoming from the guys from Mist.
Did you add your Samsung S10 to that as well, to that mix, and try to create some more, like an additional RU there on the spectrum view?
Yeah, exactly. So, we connected. We asked the password to connect to the network. They gave it to us, and then I had a Wi-Fi 6 phone, and then Dave Binhan had a Wi-Fi 6 phone as well. So we attached the network, and then Wes Purvis from Mist came and then gave us the. Ask us to start an iPerf server on our phones, and then generated some iPerf traffic as well. So we had like up to 4 devices, I think, at least 4 Wi-Fi 6 devices on the channel to generate more RUs.
And what did you think? Were those iPerf tests to your liking? Did they meet your expectations?
Honestly, I can't remember the speeds we got. I was just focused on looking at the spectrum.
Yeah.
But I took a little video. Maybe we'll add it in the show note as a GIF. But it was cool. It was quite impressive. And yeah.
And what do you think about the Wi-Fi 6 capabilities of the Mist AP? I mean, every vendor is coming out with their Wi-Fi 6 AP now. Do you think Mist is like further along in that development and with the feature set that we were expecting out of the draft, the 802.11ax draft?
Well, for sure they have OFDMA working, which is nice, right? A lot of other vendor came out with their Wi-Fi 6 access point without necessarily having OFDMA, enabled. For Mist, at least they have that running. So maybe they were a little late to the game, but maybe they just wanted OFDMA to work.
Yeah.
To start with, though, so it wasn't a bad idea. In terms of the other features, I haven't had a look at it yet, but I'm guessing it's the same as the others. They didn't spend too much time on developing which features they support. They just presented their new access point, and then in their new access point they actually have 3 Wi-Fi radios, and you could do a dual 5 gigahertz and have a third radio to do some monitoring or even some testing, because it's also certified to transmit on the third radio.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could have some tests running from the third radio as well.
Okay, so I can see a lot of good capabilities coming out of this access point where it's cloud managed, so you don't have to deal with any other appliances to utilize some sort of testing on that AP, right, with that third radio. I like the idea of the dual 5, but the thing that I like the most about Mist is they do very well with their software. So I'm wondering how they can present some of those efficiencies to the dashboard and let you know, look at how Wi-Fi 6 is performing versus Wi-Fi 5 BSS as an example, right? I think that would be interesting to see on the dashboard if they're able to do that.
Yeah, that would be great. They didn't talk about any of this. So I'm not too sure, but yeah, there's some potential there. You're right. We could get some more stats from the Wi-Fi 6 access point. And also, I'm thinking, with the third radio, they could even run some tests in the background, or use that to refine, their detection, anomaly detection, or do some testing, right? If they detect an anomaly, they could just do a test from the third radio to confirm it, or to see if they could fix the issue or refine it.
Having that third radio seems to be almost a norm, where other vendors are starting to add that third radio as a way of assurance for their wireless network, with providing these tests or synthetic tests. Because again, it's a test where you're doing it from the AP, so you got to keep that in mind. It's not at the client level, but it's still a test nonetheless. Like if you don't have anything on site that you could test with, and it's a remote site, you could be able to run this test on the AP and then be able to see that instantly on a dashboard. Or if you're pretty good with APIs, I'm pretty sure Mist has these APIs available with this third radio, and you could do your own custom dashboard for this purpose, or maybe use it as part of some sort of survey, for example. Like the AP doesn't have to be mounted on the ceiling. You could have one somewhere out on the floor near clients, as an example, right? And use that third radio just as a testing sensor. Yeah,
that would be an expensive sensor, but it
would be. But hey, if you got that powerful dashboard from Mist, I think it would be well worth it.
You're right. And also, what was really good during the Wi-Fi 6 section is, so Wes Purvis was presenting, and he gave us, he showed us like a Wireshark capture of a Wi-Fi 6 OFDMA packet. And so he told us how to filter out for that specific packet, and to validate if you are using OFDMA or not in your Wi-Fi 6 network. So I put the filter in the show notes. So if you guys want to check it out, just go to the show notes, cleartosend.net/182, and you should find it out if you want to validate that your Wi-Fi 6 network is using OFDMA.
Yeah, we might include a PCAP just in case some of you guys don't have Wi-Fi 6 in your lab or in your environment, so that way you could look up RUs. I mean, I've generated with at least 2 clients, and we should be able to see that. And one thing that is also going to be standard now, I guess, with newer APs is this multi-gig Ethernet port. The Mist AP supports the 802.3 BZ. That's beta. B as in beta, and then it's 2.5 gigs of PHY, so it's also 802.3 AT compliant, and I think it's just one port. Is that right, Francois?
Actually, I can't remember if they had one port. I think it is. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure. We will confirm that. Yeah, I'm not too sure. We did see the AP, and actually, I added a couple of pictures in the show notes. They gave us they passed the AP around, and they also passed the AP without the cover, so you can actually see the Wi-Fi antennas and the Bluetooth antennas as well. So Mist also supports indoor location. Actually, they told us that 30% of their sales are BLEs, and then 60 to 70 are Wi-Fi related sales, which was interesting.
And I think that antenna design is really neat. I'm looking at this picture you took, and I remember in the previous Mobility Field Day, Bob Friday would show the original design, which is this. It was like a really big, clunky looking thing, but it was a way for them to validate that design. And now to see it within an access point with that cover off, it's pretty impressive in terms of hardware design.
And I think the picture I have here is the access point with external antennas for Wi-Fi. So the one you see in the center are the BLE antennas. And I have another one where you can also see the internal Wi-Fi antennas. So I'll try to include them as well, so you guys can see the difference.
Cool.
So for the BLE, I think they use a combination of different antennas, so they can create virtual BLE beacons and then know where you are using angle of arrival. So it's a pretty interesting design. So you don't have to install an overlay network of BLE beacons to do your indoor location. You can just use the Mist AP to the location.
Yeah, having the virtual beacons is a really interesting concept. The antenna design is what really sells that part, because of the angle of arrival, where you have a floor plan and then you would place on the floor plan a virtual beacon, and in the real world where you would actually place a physical beacon. So you're doing away with all those physical beacons where you'd have to replace the batteries every year or a couple years, or you misplace them. But the virtual beacon, I thought, from when I have first seen it, I've seen it in action before, it was fairly accurate. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, and location, it's still very dear to Bob's Friday heart. So they were joking around with him during the presentation that he wouldn't have enough time to give us an update on location. But he did at the end. He gave us an update on location, and he told us that Google and Apple are embracing the BLE technology for indoor location services. So he's following their lead, and he thinks it's going to be the future in terms of what we can do with indoor locations. And then he was saying that more and more use cases are becoming available to us, leveraging the indoor location. And he was talking about something called Uber Help. So it's kind of like the Uber in a hospital, where when you arrive, if you need a wheelchair or if you need something, you'll just go on this app, ask for a wheelchair, and then you'll see like a blue dot of where the wheelchair is, and then how far it is from you, and then so it's an example of something you can do using indoor location. But I mean, sky is the limit there. We're just a matter of working with third party app providers to see how we could leverage indoor locations and BLE to do other things in the enterprise space.
Yeah, I would really like to see this take off and see a lot of use cases where it makes sense, especially when you talk about things like ROI, because you have the hardware here that can do this location-based services, but then you still have to get possibly a developer to build this application out, a mobile app or even a front-end web app, and then having to put that on a map. And some of the use cases that I can only think about are like blue dot navigation, maybe tracking some inventory. There's also room tracking. Like I guess people try to find rooms for if you think of higher education, they want to find an available room, so they'll use navigation and show somebody how to get there. I can see this being used in malls, for example, of trying to find a store. If you look at the map that you traditionally see now, which is just like this paper map, you look at it and then you go, okay, I'm here, I need to go over there, but then there's nothing guiding you. So I'm not sure like if that's where people want to spend their money on just something that simple, but I'd like to see maybe more creative use cases for location services.
Yeah, for location services, one application I would love to see is, on Google Map, when you go in a mall, they now show you the inside of the mall. They show you, the different stores, and you can actually navigate inside the mall. That would be nice if you have, in like location roaming between GPS and indoor BLE when you go inside the mall, and then you go on Google Map, and it shows you the blue dot based on the BLE location. I don't know if that would work, but that would be a cool application.
I could see that working. But then when people start talking about 5G and private 5G, like I wonder if that would also solve that as well. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I'd be interested to see like where this goes, and especially with the technology here. I mean, we have the technology, just wondering what it's gonna look like.
Well, I'm sure people will find ideas.
Yes, definitely. We have a lot of really smart people out there.
Something I wanted to mention for the location. So when Bob talked about location services, on one of his slides, it has something that was stating that machine learning will eliminate surveys.
Oh, yeah, right? I heard about this.
Yeah, and then people took that at heart and then started to talk on Twitter and be like, "Oh, he's missing that we won't have to do a survey anymore. Machine learning is replacing us." and they thought it was related to Wi-Fi surveys, where Bob was just explaining that Mist is using machine learning to calculate the path loss of every client and every AP, but on the Bluetooth side of things. So he wasn't talking about Wi-Fi at all.
Yeah, he was just talking about the location part.
The location part, yeah, and then I guess people took it out of its context and then started to talk on Twitter. So.
A little sensitive, some of these guys.
All right, so we talked about Wi-Fi 6. We talked about location. Let's talk about AI and ML, right?
Yeah. The good buzzwords.
So they gave us. So you interviewed Bob Friday a couple episodes back, and you guys talked a little bit about how the AI engine is evolving for Mist. So they pretty much gave us the same type of information with a little bit more details. And then what they really want to achieve is having like a self-driving network, right? It's kind of like the road to the self-driving car. For Mist, it's the road to the self-driving network. So their long-term vision will be to have like a network that can detect anomalies and fix them. So you can just it's you go on auto drive mode pretty much.
Yeah, I really like this idea because I think this is where it needs to go anyways. With all the issues that pop up with Wi-Fi, I think it's time if we can utilize some of this technology to help at least solve some of these issues, even if it's some of the more simple ones. If that means like changing a channel or either increase or decrease transmit power, or maybe it's a setting on the WLAN that needs to occur because maybe there's a big issue that's happening across your environment. But this is where I actually see one company implementing artificial intelligence and also possibly machine learning, because I hear a lot of those buzzwords, but I barely understand how they're actually being used at some of these companies. And I think Mist does a good job at describing how they're using it and also giving you some of those analogies of this is what it is, right? Like Marvis is this AI, this artificial intelligence. It's like your Amazon Alexas at home, where you try to ask something of it and it provides you that answer, right? So that's what I like about Marvis, is being able to use the like regular English with this system and say, what are my top 3 issues in the office right now? I think that's really cool technology that should be really useful for a lot of environments.
Yeah, I agree with you. Whenever you listen to Mist talking about AI, it feels real, right? It doesn't feel like it's just a buzzword they put in the marketing content. It feels real, and they show you how it works. They even told us, some of the things that they use behind the scene and how it actually works. So, going back to Marvis, so Marvis is there, like you say, it's their, virtual assistant. Just like Alexa, you can ask them a question and it gives you the answer. You cannot really ask, a question using your voice yet, but maybe it's going to be the future.
I'm sure that'll happen soon with the API. Change Alexa's name to Marvis.
It's in the future you'll come to the office in the morning and be like, "Hey Marvis, what do I do?" And then you'll be like, "Hey, you have an AP down at your site. You need to check it out." But yeah, so you type a question in English, like you said, and then it gives you some answers. And then so they were talking about the behind the scene of the new improvement they've made on Marvis. And they talked about anomaly detection.
Okay.
And they were saying that they became really good at it, and they now have an accuracy of 99% on their anomaly detection, and they use recurrent neural network to make it happen. Right. And then so Bob spent some time talking about that because, it sounds all good and easy, but it's actually not easy behind the scenes. They have to crunch all that data in, and they have to use those complex algorithms to detect if there's an anomaly or not.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't believe they even made it to 99% because that just seems crazy, right? Like they just set the bar. Like the bar is 99%. Accuracy in finding these anomalies, and what I find most interesting too is they use this. They eat their own dog food. So if somebody submits a ticket, then Marvis is the one that's actually taking a look at that ticket first, right? That's what I got out of the recording. So Marvis is the one trying to solve the ticket that a user put in, and then gives them that response. And I guess usually if it's incorrect, it's because the user gave them feedback and said, "Oh, this isn't the right answer." I didn't quite get that part, but I felt like that they're using Marvis first to take a lot of these tickets, find the problem, and be able to give a solution to the end user.
That was very impressive. If you watch the presentation, you'll see a slide where they show you over the last 12 months the number of tickets open on the system, and then they show you out of those tickets what's the proportion of Marvis being right, and finding the good the good solution. And it's like nowadays it came up to like 50%, which is really good in their journey. So it's quite impressive, and the way their anomaly detection works. So what they do is they look at the past 2 months, and they look at how the network behaved in the past 2 months, taking into account time of the day and day of the week, right? So they compare Sundays with Sundays, Mondays with Mondays, 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then based on that 2-month history, they predict what the next hour will be. Right? So they predict what the next hour will be, and then if there is some deviation from that, they will just flag it as anomaly and tell you what's going on.
Yeah. I can't even begin to wrap my head around what this algorithm looks like. And I know Bob has shown it before. I think he showed it at Mobility Field Day 3, and it's just over my head.
Yeah, it's a lot of data, crunching, and it's I think it's much more complex than what we can understand, what I can understand. Anyway.
Yeah. And part of the AI or Marvis that they're adding to this, it looks like they've added a couple new features, which they like we talked about before with the switches. They added now the switch health view, which goes into this algorithm because it should be able to detect an anomaly if maybe there's a port misconfiguration, for example, like maybe you're missing a VLAN or some other port configuration where it's instead of a gig, it's now 100 megs, for example. What other things did they talk about that's new with Marvis?
Yeah, so they added a couple of features, like you said, the Switch Health View. They changed the AP Health View as well. They improved it. They also added something that Lee Badman was very pleased about, is the bug detection. So they'll have something if someone finds a bug on one AP, one firmware version, they will detect it, flag it, for the entire AP. Yeah, for the entire APs in the cloud, and then if another customer is detecting anomalies and is running the same firmware, they will just do patch upgrades to fix that issue.
Okay, so if they detect it, it'll automatically patch that bug.
That's what I understood. Yeah, I understood it was automatic. So, yeah. And then something else that's new is they have something where Marvis will give you task or will give you an update. So that's something you could use, like if you arrive in the morning at your task, and the first thing you do, you open Mist, and then you go to Marvis, and then you ask him, what's up, and then it gives you, a list of things to do. To start the day, you should do this, you should do that. That's so cool.
Yeah, I'd like to see what that looks like and how it determines what your task list should be, right?
Yeah.
What are these? How does it rank it? What's the severity? What happens if you don't tackle anything on that to-do list? And then maybe, I'm sure Bob talked about getting to the future where maybe there won't be a to-do list. It'll just fix it for you.
Yes. Yeah. So they talked a little bit about that, and I'm not too sure 100%, but I think some of the tasks are already done automatically by the algorithm today, and some other tasks I think they're just recommending you. They're giving you recommendations.
Okay, I see. I think I remember this part from the video. It was, I can't talk too much to it, but I think leading to the future, it's kind of a way for them to determine or kind of teach the system or Marvis on in the future of how to fix things automatically. I think maybe that's part of how they're gonna roll that into a future update. I could be wrong, but that's just kind of like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, well, the first step was to be really good at anomaly detection, and I think they covered that. So now the next step would be, how can we leverage all of that to just, auto configure the network as we go to fix those little anomalies, and then it's kind of like manage the network automatically,
Yeah, and a long time ago, I think I've had discussions with one or two people about Mist where, because if we talk about their RRM algorithms and they really are proud of their own RRM, and I think it was even shown in some of the videos, but I'm starting to wonder, when are they going to take clients into consideration? And when you think about this, they kind of mentioned this in the recordings because they talked about their SDK and how you could use that SDK on some mobile devices or even laptops to be able to provide feedback to Mist and the dashboard in order to even fine-tune the RRM algorithm even more. Because a lot of the RRM algorithms are mainly just from the AP's perspective. I think once we get more detail from the clients, then that's when RRM can be a lot more accurate with changing its settings.
Yes, you're right. And they did say they were working on it. So maybe when they come back to the next mobility field day, maybe they will have some more information about that, something to show us. Because
I hope so.
I think they're working on it actively right now.
Yeah, because I felt like they added a little bit of nuggets here and there, but they didn't really go into what they've mentioned. And I felt like those were big items, but more about maybe foreshadowing like what's to come in the next 12 months.
Well, the last thing they talked about that we didn't cover here is the Mist Edge that they announced, the new feature. So we talked about it last week a little bit. So they now have this product called Mist Edge, where pretty much they're installing some of their microservices. They now have the ability to install some of their microservices, on-prem. So they would go to a customer, install like a VM, an appliance, where they would just have their microservices running on them. And the first service that they're offering right now is the tunnel centralization or termination. And this allowed them to win some big campus customers or higher education customers that had a traditional architecture of having the APs tunneled their traffic back to a centralized controller. And if they wanted to migrate to Mist, that would be a nightmare to reconfigure all the ports and all the switches and all of that. So with Mist Edge and this tunnel terminator, they could just install it on-prem and then have that terminate all the tunnels. And so the customer wouldn't have to reconfigure all the layer 2 switches.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this, and I kind of poked fun because it sounds like they put a controller on-prem, even though they're a cloud-based company. But it's not really a controller; it's just a tunnel terminator. Because if you've got a large infrastructure like myself, where you've got thousands of APs, that means you've got hundreds of switches. And they're all just tunneling. The APs are just being tunneling traffic all the way back to the controller, which means I'm not trunking any VLANs to all my switches. So having to migrate from that traditional controller model to a distributed model means you have to reconfigure all those switch ports. Is it really a nightmare for these campuses to do? Maybe, but leveraging this tunnel terminator and calling it, bringing microservices to the edge just allows that customer to transition much easily to the Mist platform, the Mist environment. And because honestly, I think if you've got some sort of automation on your campus, and if you're that big, you could most likely just automate the port configuration and then also automate some of that controller configuration and then call it a day.
Or if you're migrating to new APs, you're not going to migrate all your APs overnight. You do building per building, so you can just plan it, I guess.
Yeah, you're not going to transition that all of them all at once. So even with new implementations, as you try to, I guess, transition from traditional controllers to cloud-based, you would usually do it on either a new install, and then you just put in all Mist and configure the switches as the new architecture, or you're going to do it on your refresh and then reconfigure the switches and add all those VLANs, etc. But it is a lot more than configuration, because you still got to think about the types of switches you're going to add. If you're going to trunk everything, it's all now traffic's being dropped locally on the switch, so you've got to button up your core network and ensure that you've got the right amount of resources. So I think having a tunnel terminator is simply just an easy way for Mist to get more customers, because I think the large campus is really like a hard sell for them, especially if you've got small resources and you just don't have the bandwidth to create this new architecture for Mist APs, right? I think it's a hard sell. So having this tunnel terminator just makes it easy.
Yes, exactly. I think that was their point, right? They just worked on this project so they could sell their solution to higher headed customers and larger campus customers. Two things that are to note, or three, I should say. One is, everything is still managed in the cloud. So, you add your APs. Even if you have this missed edge, you go back into your dashboard and you see all of your APs. Second thing, the tunnel technology used between the AP and the missed edge is L2TPv3. So L2TPv3, I should say. And the third thing is it's supposed to be an automatic detection. So you connect the AP to your network and it will automatically detect the missed edge and then build the tunnel. From the user experience standpoint, I guess, it's the same as if you were to connect the AP to the cloud.
Okay, so would you know then if it auto detects that on-prem appliance or virtual machine, if you have multiple instances of those and one goes down, do the missed APs know about the other ones and just automatically recreate those tunnels?
I don't know. No idea.
Okay, that's probably more of like a very detailed question to ask Mist.
They do have some, documentation on their website where they talk about it. They have the data sheet. And also licensing is works the exact same way as the cloud, so you pay per AP. But they do have something called high availability and clustering. So it says missed edge supports an elastically scalable cluster composed of an unlimited number of nodes within a cluster. The missed edge cluster designed for the tunneling microservices is guided by the aggregate capacity consideration for a number of access points, clients, and throughput expectations.
Yeah. Okay, so I remember the video then. That answers my question, because if you put it in a cluster, the APs know about each one. And then there's a capacity limitation there. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was 6,000 APs to one node, or whatever
10,000
one
to the max.
10,000?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty huge. Okay.
So that's for the appliances, because they do have some appliances. So the first one supports 500 APs, second one 5,000, and then the bigger one 10,000. Maybe for the 6,000, maybe you're talking about a VM, if you were to install a VM.
Well, I was wrong in the 6,000. I just pulled up the data sheet too. There's no number in there that says 6,000. Maybe they were comparing it to like a Cisco controller that supports 6,000 APs.
And something else we should mention is, the tunneling microprocessing is the first microservice that installed in Mist Edge. But in the future, we could just imagine having other microservices installed on Mist Edge, right?
Yeah. So you're taking pieces of the cloud and putting it on-prem.
Yes. I think Sudhir Mehta from Mist, when he presented, I think he was talking about, having another microservice that would gather information from the LAN and then feed that back to the cloud. So we'll see what's up in the future, but I think they will keep on adding more microservices to Mist Edge.
I think that is really interesting, because it sounds very similar to Niansa, and how Niansa has also an on-prem appliance which gathers a lot of data, does a lot of the crunching, the number crunching on-prem, and then sends like metadata back up to the cloud for other things. It sounds similar to that, but I do like this idea of bringing on other microservices. So maybe there could be newer microservices that Mist brings up that may be more beneficial to be done locally than done in the cloud. I don't know. And I also feel like with as many customers that Mist is grabbing, I mean, the cloud it sounds like it will be pretty expensive for them. And so I feel like if they brought some of those services on-prem, that offloads a lot of the cloud resources that they have to spend on. So, I mean, that could be one way to put it.
Yeah, you're right.
But I don't know. What do you think about Mist Edge? You think it's you think it's gonna gain traction with some of these campus environments where they'll hop on this and go, this is an easy way to migrate?
Well, I think it was definitely a business-driven product. So if they did it, it means some people asked for it, and so we'll see. But I think this will allow them to win some bigger campus environments.
Okay.
So because Mist historically they're doing very good in retail space.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of location, low number of APs, but with that new product, I guess now they just they have something to offer to those larger environments. So I think it was a business driven product, and I think it's going to help them to win more deals for those those environments.
Do you think Mist is innovating more than some of the other vendors?
Well, if you think about just Marvis alone, that's a big innovation to me, no?
Yeah.
Going to your dashboard, asking a question, getting a whole bunch of data. That's not how we are used to manage networks, right? So I think that's a huge innovation.
I agree.
Overall, I was very happy with Mist's presentation. They managed to pack a lot of information within, the 2 hours we were over there. We talked about location, Wi-Fi 6, AI. We talked about, Marvis and the anomaly detection. We talked about the new features they have on the dashboard, the switch support and all of that. So it was really, really, really interesting. And the energy that they bring, right? Especially Sudhir when he presents. So still the same energy. So it was really great. And I love the fact that they showed us some Wi-Fi 6 activities. We didn't see any other Wi-Fi 6 real activity from the other vendors. So I was really pleased with that. I guess they set the expectation very high since we did Mist, the first.
Yeah.
So it was really I really liked their presentation. Like I said, when they talked about AI, it just feels real. It feels like they know what they're doing. It doesn't feel like just a buzzword they put in marketing. So it's nice. You can look at the dashboard and actually see it in action. And it's really nice. And then the new Wi-Fi access is the new Wi-Fi 6 access point. Hopefully we get to test it and see how it compares to the other one we already have. And then we'll share a packet capture so you guys can filter out some OFDMA frames there.
Yeah.
So if you want to have more details, if you want to watch the videos, you can go to the show notes, so cleartosend.net/182, and then you'll find the links to all the different videos, presentation from Mobility Field Day 4. And then in the show notes also you'll see some of the details, some of the pictures, and we will also try to link the articles, the Mist related articles from the other delegates, if you guys want to get their insight on on Mist presentation.
Yeah, and I think it's actually it's going to be episode 183, Francois.
Oh, it's 183. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I'm already in the past. Okay. So 183, and then so cleartosend.net/183. Thank you, Roa, and then you get all the information there. I like to mention the show notes because that's something we do work on as well on top of the audio for the podcast. So if you want to get more data, all the links, all the pictures and all of that, just feel free to go to the show notes. We have one for every episode.
Awesome.
Do you have anything to add?
No, I just want to encourage everyone to check out the videos. I thought it was a really good presentation as well. So we're going to link just the missed videos in this episode, cleartosend.net/183, and hopefully we can get some of your what you guys think. Leave a comment and let us know. Do you think this is where wireless is going, or do you think it's just more of like a fad, or you don't think this is where it should be going? But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
I was going to say, do you think machine learning will eliminate surveys?
Unless machine learning sends out a machine to fix AP placements, then maybe. But that means not yet.
All right, guys, we'll close on this. Thank you for listening, and then we'll catch you guys next week for a new episode of the Clear to Send show. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.